the gun. This particular gun here I actually made 10 years ago in 2001 for a mate of mine that was heading to the Maldives and every few years, and the waves he rode on this particular board was between 8 to about 10 to 12 foot. It's an 8'1" gun, and as you can see by these particular boards with a gun, they've got quite a narrow tail. Now it's only got like a 12¼ inch tail and about 10¾ inch nose. And this style of board, the guy that owns this one is around 95 kilos and 6 foot sort of tall. Most guns made for a particular person, we try and work out the thicknesses and width going off their short boards and adapt it into their gun. So this is a real easy step up board for my friend who owns it. And like I say, the longevity of these boards, because I glass them with a 6 and a 4 on the deck and a 6 and a 4 on the bottom, they actually, like I say, this is 10 years old and it's had a lot of big waves, and it's only got a couple of little pressure dings here and there, a couple of minor repairs, and they actually happened on the plane trip to the Maldives. So these are, like as I said, these are really built to last. Now because the style of surfing in 8 to 12 foot waves, you know, not many people sort of brave it, I certainly don't, but the sort of style of surfing, when you're paddling into these waves, you need the thickness and the paddle power to get into it. That's why a lot of this toe-in surfing now, a lot of guys are riding boards not much bigger than the normal shortboard because they're getting towed into the wave. But this paddle-in big wave surfing, you need the thickness and volume. This particular one here is 2 3/4 thick. And I'll just flip it over and you can get a good view of the thickness of the board. Now the volume in the nose has got quite a bit of thickness in it here and here, where the chest of the person surfer paddling it is, because this is what sort of helps you paddle into a wave. And when you're doing a really late drop into a 10-foot wave, because the tail hasn't got a lot of thickness in it, you need this forward volume so you really stay above the water. Now as for the outline of the board, this particular one has got the swallowtail. Now it doesn't really make a hell of a lot of difference whether it's a rounded square, rounded pin. It's just more of a mental thing. This guy's quiver is swallowtail, so we just adapt the tail that he likes and into it. The noses on most guns are all pretty well the same. If you look at, like I say, this is 10 years old. All the Hawaiian guns I've seen 20 odd years ago, 25 years ago, the Rawsons and the Barnfields and all those really big name guns that a few of the pro surfers are riding, they still had these characteristics of this big volume here. You might see some guns around, like for guys that weigh 55, 60 kilos, and they might be really thin and so forth, but when you're surfing bigger waves and you really need to be able to paddle, and let's face it, not everyone gets towed out by a jet ski, and sometimes these guys have to paddle a long way, and this is where that volume and thickness comes into it. Now with the rail shape and things like this, like I say, this one here is a pretty basic looking gun. The rockers haven't changed a lot, and I wouldn't want to change it a lot because I know this sort of curve works. Just a nice basic even curve, and it's probably not much different than 25 years ago because the style of big wave surfing, hasn't changed a great deal in paddling big surf, and it's basically making the waves, and we've worked out this curve works. The bottom shape on this particular gun, the guy's quiver had a lot of bonzes in it, and this is where it's got the slight little concave between the fins, so we adapted it into the board. Most guns just have a V bottom like this, but we just added the bonzes in it to make it a bit of a performance one as well, which it does. Apparently he says it's the best gun he's ever had in his life, and that's always a really good compliment. With the bottom shape up the nose, most guns always just have a V all the way through, just so these rails do not catch, make them a lot more forgiving, because catching a rail when you're dropping down a big wave is the one thing you don't want to do, so we try and make it as forgiving as possible. As for the nose curve, just a nice even curve. You don't want these massive nose curves because all that's going to happen is the water's going to hit it and it's just going to sit out the water like a slipper. So this sits in the water beautiful. I've seen photos of the guy riding it, and it just looks so nice. And he had a lot of comments on a couple of his boat trips when the waves were at 10 foot. He was one of the standouts on the trip. Now, as for the rail, like I say, this guy's 9,500 kilos, so it's got quite a chunky rail. Whether you're getting just a 7 foot one for Indo, or an 8 foot one, or 9 foot for Hawaii, you know, we adapted to what the particular needs are. Paddling was a big thing for this, and he was going to charge the big waves. But you can get a 7 foot gun, you know, for the Indo days where you might be 8 foot Padang or even Gradugan or something, and just want that down the line speed and so forth. And a lot of guys feel a lot more confident doing those bottom turns on quite a bit longer board rather than trying it on just a 6.5 or a 6.6. Now, as I said with the glassing, a 6 and a 4 on the top and a 6 and a 4 on the bottom. And like I say, this is 10 years old and it's had a few surfs, and like I say, I'm glad to see it's in such good condition. And the bottom with that double layer, this is where it really adds the strength to these boards, because you don't want to be on a boat trip and, you know, take a super lightweight gun and have it in 2 pieces on the first surf, you know, because some of these trips are 2 weeks, and if you haven't got access to other boards, it's not worth it for the sake of having a real lightweight gun. The other thing too, this one was sprayed white 10 years ago, and as you can see, it's only discoloured slightly, but like I say, it's a lot of UV lights and a lot of bright UV light in the islands, but it's been kept in a cover, so like I say, I'm glad to see this is hung in there so well. If you want to get a gun, like I say, we just sit down and talk about what you've had in the past, where you're going, all these sorts of things. But like I say, they're built to last, and probably a lot like the Plank model, it's a board you keep for a long time. And I'm glad to see that this one, after 10 years, he's still got no wanting to change it, you know. So it's a real thing about making boards strong, and this is what we try and do. So, yep, this is the gun.